You know what's funny about first contact protocols? Everyone assumes they'll work. The day the Kryvacs arrived, humanity had its protocols ready. Carefully crafted documents filled with mathematical constants, peaceful greetings in multiple languages, and enough scientific goodwill to choke a galaxy. What we didn't have was a protocol for when aliens decide to crash land next to a museum full of fourth graders on a field trip to the Natural History Museum in Chicago. Real smooth move there, space cowboys. The ship, if you could call that twisted mass of bioorganic material a ship, came screaming through the atmosphere like a drunk driver, hitting every atmospheric layer on the way down. It finally stuck the landing by embedding itself halfway through the museum's parking lot, taking out a few unfortunate yellow school buses in the process. Well, muttered Dr. Raymond Chen, the museum's head of xenobiology, and currently the most ironic job title holder on Earth, at least they missed the dinosaur exhibit. The first Kryvacs emerged from their ship like something out of a nightmare designed by committee. Picture a praying mantis that went through a medieval armor phase, then decided to accessorize with bioluminescent patches that pulsed in patterns that made your eyes water. Their exoskeletons gleamed with an iridescent sheen that shifted between deep purple and acid green, and they moved with a jerky grace that seemed to ignore several laws of physics. "Hello," called out Dr. Chen, stepping forward with his hands raised in the universal gesture of "Please don't eviscerate me. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth." The lead Kryvacs, distinguishable by its larger size and more elaborate bioluminescent patterns, tilted its head at an angle that would have required a human to break their neck in at least 3 places. It made a sound like a garbage disposal trying to digest a fork. "Great," whispered Lieutenant James Martinez of the rapidly arriving Chicago PD. "They speak garbage disposal. Anyone got a Rosetta Stone for that?" The situation might have remained merely tense if Mrs. Thompson's 4th grade class hadn't picked that exact moment to press their faces against the museum's glass doors, their eyes wide with wonder at seeing real alien life for the first time. The Kryvacs' reaction was immediate and horrifying. Their bioluminescent patterns shifted to a deep, pulsing red. Their mandibles clicked rapidly, and without warning they raised weapons that looked like they were grown, rather than manufactured. The weapons pulsed with the same sickly bioluminescence as their bodies. "Get those kids away from the windows," Dr. Chen shouted, but it was too late. The Kryvacs opened fire. The only reason more children weren't hurt was due to the quick thinking of the museum's security guard, who hit the emergency lockdown button seconds before the alien weapons discharged. Reinforced safety glass, installed after the T-Rex incident of 2023, absorbed most of the biological projectiles, though the glass began to bubble and dissolve where they hit. "They're using acid weapons," Dr. Chen yelled, diving behind a concrete barrier. "On children!" Lieutenant Martinez was already on his radio, calling for everything from SWAT to the National Guard. "Hostile aliens at the Field Museum, multiple shooters, bioweapons, civilians in danger. I repeat, children in danger." As chaos erupted around them, Dr. Chen noticed something that made his blood run cold. The Kryvacs weren't shooting randomly. They were specifically targeting areas where children were visible, ignoring the adults completely. "They're hunting the kids," he breathed in horror. "They're specifically hunting our children." The Kryvacs' chittering took on a different tone, something that sounded almost like laughter. That was humanity's first contact with alien life. No peaceful exchange of knowledge, no diplomatic relations, just the sound of alien laughter as they tried to murder Earth's children. You know what else is funny about first contact protocols? They don't include a section on what to do when humanity collectively decides that an alien species needs to stop existing. But we were about to write that protocol ourselves, in blood. The next 47 minutes became known simply as the incident. It's amazing how quickly humanity can reduce absolute horror into a simple 2-word phrase. Maybe it's our way of coping. Maybe it's because what followed made those 47 minutes look like a warm-up act. SWAT arrived first, because of course they did. Armed with enough firepower to level a small country, they found themselves woefully unprepared for aliens whose exoskeletons could shrug off .50 caliber rounds like spitballs. "This is like throwing rocks at a tank," Officer Rodriguez shouted, ducking behind a police cruiser as acid rounds melted through the vehicle's engine block. "We need something bigger." The National Guard arrived 12 minutes later with something bigger, much bigger. An M1 Abrams tank rolled up Michigan Avenue, like the world's angriest parallel parker. The Krivax actually paused their assault to watch it approach. Maybe they were curious. Maybe they were amused. Maybe they should have been paying more attention to what it was about to do to their ship. The tank's main gun roared, and suddenly there was one less alien spacecraft in Chicago. "Target destroyed," the tank commander reported with professional satisfaction. Then, less professionally, "How do you like them apples, you bug-eyed bastards?" The Krivax response was immediate and horrifying. They stopped attacking the museum and turned their full attention to the military response. But not in the way anyone expected. They started singing. If you've never heard 8-foot-tall alien mantis creatures harmonize, count yourself lucky. The sound bypassed the ears and went straight for the brainstem, carrying with it images of things that had no business existing in our reality. 3 National Guard soldiers dropped unconscious immediately. 2 more started bleeding from their eyes. Inside the museum, children began screaming as the same psychic assault battered their developing minds. That's when Admiral Helen Chen arrived with the newly formed Extraterrestrial Defense Force, EDF. She took one look at the situation, saw her brother Raymond taking cover behind a barrier, and made a decision that would set the tone for humanity's entire response to the Krivax. "Authorization code Chen Alpha 7, she spoke into her comm unit. "Deploy the electromagnetic pulse." The EMP hit like a thunderclap without sound. The Krivax's bioluminescent patterns stuttered and died. Their weapons stopped working. Their psychic singing cut off mid-note. And then the EDF opened fire with prototype plasma weapons. Turns out, Admiral Chen would later explain to the UN Security Council, their biological tech doesn't respond well to having its electrical systems scrambled. Who knew? But it was too late for 37 children who had been exposed to the psychic assault. They lay in hospital beds across Chicago, their young minds trapped in comas, their brainwave patterns showing activity that human neuroscience couldn't begin to explain. The global response was immediate and unprecedented. Within hours, every major power had pledged their full military and scientific resources to what would become known as the Nemesis Initiative. The Chinese Space Force began retrofitting their orbital platforms with weapon systems. Russian cybernetics labs started working on psychic shielding. The European Union fast-tracked their battle mech program. They targeted children, Admiral Chen told the emergency session of the UN. Not our military, not our infrastructure. They went straight for our kids. And based on the data we recovered from their ship, this wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This is what they do. They travel from world to world, targeting the young of sentient species. They feed on their neural energy. She paused, letting that sink in. Humanity has never been united in war, she continued. We've always fought amongst ourselves, but these creatures just gave us something we've never had before, an enemy that every human being can agree needs to be exterminated. They thought they were hunting our children, her brother Raymond added, his usual scientific detachment replaced by cold fury. They didn't realize they were writing their species' extinction warrant. The UN vote was unanimous, the first and only time in its history. Project Nemesis was given unlimited funding and authority. The hunt for the Krivax would begin. And humanity? We were about to show the galaxy why you don't mess with our kids. The Emergency Global Defense Council meeting was held in a bunker 3 kilometers beneath Geneva. Because apparently, when facing spacefaring predators who eat children's minds, being underground makes everyone feel a tiny bit safer. The bunker's designer had clearly watched too many sci-fi movies. The place looked like the love child of a Soviet nuclear shelter and a Silicon Valley startup's office space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Chen began, standing before representatives from every nation on Earth. "Welcome to the war room. And yes, before anyone asks, we can fight in here." Nobody laughed at the Dr. Strangelove reference, tough crowd. Dr. Raymond Chen took over, pulling up holographic displays of Krivax biology. "The good news is, we've found their weaknesses. The bad news is, they're not as weak as we'd like." The holograms showed the intricate bioelectrical systems that powered everything from their weapons to their psychic abilities. Their entire technology base is biological. They grow their ships, their weapons, even their FTL drives. It's impressive, honestly. If they weren't trying to eat our children's brains, I'd be fascinated. "Get to the point, Dr. Chen," the Russian representative growled. "Right, they're vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses, as we discovered in Chicago, but they adapt quickly. We estimate we have maybe 2-3 more shots with that trick before they develop immunity. The Chinese representative leaned forward. But their biology is their weakness, yes? Everything biological can be killed. Exactly, Admiral Chen stepped back in. Which brings us to Project Nemesis. The holographic display shifted to show a massive orbital shipyard. We're not just going to fight them, we're going to hunt them down and exterminate them. But to do that, we need better weapons, better ships, and better soldiers. The next few hours were a crash course in how quickly humanity can advance when properly motivated. The Japanese unveiled their nano-forge technology, capable of building ships atom by atom. India demonstrated their breakthrough in quantum shielding. Brazil showed off their new biomechanical interface systems. We've achieved more in 2 weeks than we would have in 20 years of normal development, the American representative noted. Amazing what we can do when we're not pointing guns at each other. Speaking of guns, Admiral Chen changed the display again. Let me introduce you to the Nemesis-class battleship. The hologram showed a vessel that looked like someone had weaponized a geometry textbook, sharp angles, modular sections, and enough gun ports to make a Death Star blush. We took everything we learned from their bioships and did the opposite, Dr. Chen explained. They're organic, so we went fully synthetic. They use bioelectricity, so we're using quantum plasma. They rely on psychic attacks, so we've developed psychic dampening fields. The first ship will be ready in 3 months, Admiral Chen continued. We're calling it the HSS Retribution. 3 months? The British representative looked shocked. That's impossible. Funny thing about impossible, Admiral Chen smiled grimly. It becomes a lot more possible when you have 37 children in comas and their parents working in your engineering teams. The German representative raised an eyebrow. And the cost? Cost, Admiral Chen's voice could have frozen nitrogen. They attacked our children. The cost is irrelevant, but if you want numbers, here's 0. That's how many Kryvacs we're going to leave alive when we're done. Dr. Chen pulled up another display, this one showing training simulations. We're not just building ships, we're creating a new type of soldier. The neural interface combat system lets our pilots react at the speed of thought. The quantum combat armor makes our Marines nearly invulnerable to their bioweapons, and the psychic shield implants mean they can't get in our heads anymore. But we can get in theirs, Admiral Chen added with a predatory smile. Turns out psychic warfare is a two-way street, and humanity? We've got a lot of darkness in our collective imagination to share with them. The Council voted unanimously to proceed with full deployment. As the representatives filed out, many of them already on phones with their military commands, Admiral Chen turned to her brother. You know what the best part is? She asked. What's that? They think we're prey. They've probably done this to dozens of species, but they've never met humans before. They don't understand what they've started. Dr. Chen nodded. Humans are the only predators who hunt other predators for fun. And now we're going hunting on a galactic scale. In orbit, the framework of the HSS Retribution was already taking shape. Soon, humanity would take its first steps into the galaxy, not as explorers or diplomats, but as exterminators. And we were really going to enjoy our work. The HSS Retribution dropped out of quantum space like a shark breaching the surface, sleek, deadly, and ready to feed. The Kryvax colony world hung in space before them, its purple-green bioships orbiting like grotesque insects around a rotting fruit. Well, Captain Miguel Rodriguez announced from the command chair, looks like we found the wasp's nest. Time to break out the pesticide. Admiral Chen stood at the tactical display, her neural interface showing her every detail of the enemy formation. They've spotted us, counting 27 bioships moving to intercept, about what we expected. What we hoped for, Rodriguez corrected with a predatory grin. More fun this way. The Kryvax ships approached in a spiral formation, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what they probably thought was an intimidating display. The lead ship broadcast a psychic signal that would have liquefied the brains of unprotected humans. Instead, the signal bounced off the Retribution's psychic dampening field and was reflected back, amplified by human rage and enhanced by Earth's best psychiatric warfare experts. The lead Kryvax ship actually shuddered in space. Did they just flinch? Lieutenant Wu asked from the weapons station. They did. They actually flinched. Send them the package, Admiral Chen ordered. The package was a specially prepared psychic broadcast. Every screaming child from the Chicago incident, every parent's grief and rage, every nightmare humanity had ever conceived, from ancient folklore to modern horror, all compressed into a single transmission and beamed directly into the Kryvak's hive mind. 3 bioships immediately began spinning out of control. Now that we have their attention, Admiral Chen's voice was colder than the space around them, show them what else we brought to the party. The Retribution's weapon ports opened like blooming flowers made of titanium and hatred. Quantum plasma cannons powered up with a hum that made your teeth vibrate even through the hull. The new Hydra missile system, with its multiple independently targeting warheads, began acquiring targets. The Kryvaks finally realized they might have miscalculated. Their ship started to break formation, trying to scatter. "Oh, no you don't," Rodriguez smiled. "Woo, light them up, all batteries." The space between the ships lit up like a techno-rave designed by arms dealers. Quantum plasma bolts crossed paths with bioelectric responses. The Hydra missiles split apart, each warhead chasing its own target with AI-driven determination. "Their bioshields are adapting," Dr. Chen reported from the science station, switching to frequency pattern Delta. The quantum plasma shifted color from blue to green to a purple that hurt to look at. Bioshields that had been holding suddenly collapsed. 3 Kryvak ships died in the first volley. But the aliens weren't going down without a fight. They launched swarms of what looked like organic missiles, eggs that hatched mid-flight into something between a facehugger and a lightning bolt. "Point defense grid active," Wu reported calmly. The Retribution's close-in weapon systems came online, filling space with a web of interceptor fire. The organic projectiles died in waves, their death throes broadcasting psychic screams that the crew now found oddly satisfying. "They're trying to flank us," Rodriguez noted. "Classic pincer movement." "Let them," Admiral Chen ordered. "Activate the Charybdis." The Charybdis was the pride of Earth's quantum physics community, a gravity weapon that created a localized space-time distortion. As it powered up, nearby space began to twist like a pretzel, having an existential crisis. 6 Kryvak ships caught in the gravity wave were compressed into shapes that would have made Picasso proud before being torn apart by tidal forces. "That's for the children in Chicago," Chen whispered. The remaining Kryvak ships tried to retreat, their bioelectric drives leaving trails of pseudo-organic particles in space, but humanity had planned for this too. "Launch the remoras," Rodriguez commanded. From the Retribution's launch bays came swarms of small, sleek drones. They attached themselves to the fleeing bioships like mechanical leeches and began drilling through the organic hulls, injecting a specially engineered virus developed from the remnants of the Chicago ship. The effects were immediate and spectacular. Bioships began to rot in space, their bioluminescent patterns going dark as the virus attacked their systems. The psychic death screams of their crews echoed through the dampening field. "Keep one intact," Admiral Chen ordered. "We need to know where their homeworld is." The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes and 23 seconds. When it was over, 26 Kryvak ships were dead, their remains forming a new debris field around the colony world. The 27th was caught in a quantum stasis field, its crew trapped in a nightmare loop of human design. "Prep the landing forces," Admiral Chen commanded. "The colony won't surrender, but that's fine. We're not accepting surrenders anyway." As marine dropships launched from the Retribution's bays, Dr. Chen approached his sister. "Was it everything you hoped it would be?" he asked quietly. "No," she replied, watching the dropships descend toward the planet. "But it's a start. Send the footage back to Earth. Let everyone see what happens when you hunt human children. Let them see what's coming for the rest of the Kryvaks." "Especially the part with the gravity weapon?" "Especially that part," she smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "I want them to know exactly what's waiting for them. I want them to feel what prey feels." On the planet below, the first human boots touched alien soil, carrying with them humanity's response to an alien threat, complete and utter extinction. The thing about hunting monsters is that eventually you start thinking like them. 3 months into the campaign, humanity had become very good at thinking like monsters. "They're using children as bait," Commander Joe reported from the stealth corvette HSS Shadow Walker. 2 systems now. They're trying to draw us in." Admiral Chen's hologram flickered in the ship's command center. "Then let's not disappoint them. How's the new cloaking system working?" Like a dream, Joe grinned. The quantum mimetic hull makes us practically invisible. We look like background radiation to their biosensors. The Shadow Walker was humanity's answer to Kryvak's hit-and-run tactics, a ship that could slip through their defense networks like a ghost. Its hull was covered in quantum-shifting panels that could adapt to any detection method the Kryvaks developed. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. As humanity pushed deeper into space, they found they weren't the only species with a grudge against the Kryvaks. The Nyx were silicon-based lifeforms who had lost entire generations to Kryvaks harvesting. When they saw humans actively hunting their ancient enemy, they practically tripped over themselves, offering help. The Nyx intelligence was correct, Joe continued. The Kryvaks are massing at these coordinates, but they're scared. They're traveling in larger groups now, never alone. They've learned fear. Good, Chen's hologram nodded. Fear makes them predictable. What about our other friends? The Meridian Collective, a species of energy beings, had also joined the hunt. They provided crucial intelligence about Kryvak's movements and technology. Their ability to interface directly with quantum systems had helped perfect humanity's new weapons. Meridian sensors confirmed 20-plus bioships, Joe reported. They're protecting something big. Might be a spawning vessel. Perfect. Chen's smile was all teeth. Time to test the new toys. All hunter groups execute Protocol Nightmare. Protocol Nightmare was possibly the most vicious thing humanity had ever invented. And considering our history, that's saying something. Combining Nyx stealth tech with Meridian quantum physics and human creativity, it turned space itself into a weapon. Shadow Walker and her sister ships deployed quantum mines that phased into existence only when Kryvak ships passed nearby. The mines didn't explode. They broadcast directly into the Kryvak's hive mind, flooding it with the combined terror of every species they'd ever hunted. For the first time in their history, the hunters learned what it meant to be prey. Multiple targets breaking formation, Joe reported with professional satisfaction. Their psychic defenses are completely overwhelmed. They're broadcasting distress signals on all frequencies. Good, Chen's hologram leaned forward. Now show them why that was a mistake. The human fleet decloaked like avenging angels suddenly appearing in hell. The Kryvaks, their formations already broken by terror, never stood a chance. Quantum plasma fire cut through bioships like scalpels through tissue. Gravity weapons turned space into a maze of death, and through it all, the psychic assault continued, driving the Kryvaks mad with the fear they'd inflicted on countless species. Spawning vessel confirmed, Joe announced, sending targeting data to the fleet. The combined firepower of 12 human warships concentrated on a massive biostructure that looked like a twisted version of a nautilus shell. It died screaming, its death throes broadcasting across the hive mind and causing several other Kryvak ships to self-destruct in sympathetic shock. The Nyx were right, Chen mused. They really are connected to their spawning vessels. Every one we destroy weakens their entire species. Speaking of the Nyx, Joe added, they're asking when we're going to hit the next target. They're getting enthusiastic about this alliance. Tell them patience is a virtue, Chen replied, but also tell them we've decoded the location of 3 more spawning grounds from this battle. The hunt continues. As the human fleet regrouped and the Shadow Walker disappeared back into the void, the message was clear. Nowhere in the galaxy was safe for the Kryvaks anymore. Humanity had learned to hunt in the dark, and we'd brought friends. The Kryvaks' homeworld looked like someone had taken every nightmare humanity had ever had and used them as architectural inspiration. Bioorganic structures twisted toward a purple sky, their surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to whisper madness. Well, Admiral Chen observed from the bridge of the HSS Retribution, I can see why they turned out the way they did. Living here would drive anyone insane. The combined fleet of humanity and its allies had arrived in force. 500 human warships, backed by Nyx stealth cruisers and Meridian energy vessels, surrounded the planet in a formation that astronomical historians would later call the Noose. Final checks on the Ragnarok device, Chen asked. Dr. Chen, now sporting several neural interface upgrades and a permanently grim expression, nodded. Ready to deploy, though I still think calling it Ragnarok is a bit dramatic. You wanted to call it the really big space hammer. It's descriptive. The Ragnarok device was humanity's ultimate answer to the Kryvaks' threat. a quantum weapon that targeted specific genetic markers. It would destroy anything with Kryvak's DNA while leaving other life forms untouched. Clean, precise, and absolutely devastating. The Kryvaks had detected them, of course. Thousands of bioships rose from the planet's surface like angry wasps defending their hive. Their psychic screams of rage and fear filled space itself. "They're broadcasting something," Lieutenant Wu reported from Tactical. "Universal translators are having trouble. Wait, got it." A voice that sounded like a chorus of broken glass filled the bridge. "We are the apex predators. We have hunted 1,000 species. We have consumed millions of young minds. You cannot—" Admiral Chen cut the transmission with a gesture. "I'm sorry, did I give the impression we were here to negotiate?" The human fleet opened fire. Space lit up with quantum plasma, gravity distortions, and weapons that defied conventional physics. Kryvak's bioships died by the hundreds, their organic hulls split open by weapons specifically designed to counter their every adaptation. But they fought back with the desperation of a species facing extinction. Bioelectric weapons lashed out, finding occasional gaps in human shields. Psychic attacks probed for weaknesses in neural defenses. "They're adapting faster than expected," Dr. Chen reported, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. "The hive mind is operating at peak efficiency." "Good," Admiral Chen smiled. "That means they're all connected, all vulnerable. Launch the Ragnarok." The device itself looked almost disappointingly simple, a sphere about the size of a beach ball, covered in quantum circuitry that glowed with a soft blue light. It phased through the space battle like a ghost, ignored by both sides' targeting systems. The Kryvaks realized what was happening too late. Their bioships tried to intercept the device, but it was already interfacing with their planet's atmosphere. "Quantum cascade initiated," Dr. Chen announced. "Genetic targeting sequence locked. In 3, 2, 1. The device pulsed once, a silent flash of blue-white light that rippled through space like a stone dropped in a cosmic pond. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screaming began. Every Kryvak ship, every structure on the planet's surface, every member of their species began to unravel at the genetic level. Their bio-organic technology, based on their own DNA, dissolved into its component atoms. "Ground forces deploy," Admiral Chen ordered, her voice steady. "Secure any data cores that survive. Download their racial memory. I want their entire species to exist only as a warning in our historical archives." Marine dropships descended through the dissolving remnants of the Kryvak civilization. On the ground, they found a world being unmade. Buildings collapsing into organic slurry, technology reverting to base matter, an entire species writing its own epilogue in dissolving DNA. "Ma'am," a Marine commander reported, "we're finding record star charts, coordinates of other hunting grounds." "Good," Chen nodded. "We'll check each one, make sure no traces remain." She turned to her brother. "How long until complete dissolution?" "Hours for the structures," he replied. "Minutes for any surviving individuals. Their hive mind is already gone. They died as they lived, connected to every member of their species, feeling every death." "Just like they made those children feel every attack," Chen said quietly. "Poetic justice on a genetic level." The Retribution's crew watched in silence as the Kryvak's homeworld died, its surface turning from nightmare architecture to featureless organic soup. Humanity's first interstellar war was ending not with a bang but with the whimper of an entire species dissolving into history. 3 months after the Kryvak's extinction event, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the human situation. Representatives from 200 spacefaring civilizations gathered to debate what to do about the species that had just systematically erased another from existence. Admiral Chen stood before them, wearing her formal uniform with all its new combat medals. Dr. Chen stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in his diplomatic attire. "The children of Chicago have awakened," she began without preamble. "All 37 of them. They'll need therapy, but they'll recover. The Kryvaks won't." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Nix representative clicked their crystalline appendages in approval. The Meridian delegate pulsed with wavelengths indicating satisfaction. "We've recovered their complete racial memory," she continued. 9,000 years of hunting sapient species, destroying civilizations, consuming children's minds for their neural energy. Dozens of species driven to extinction or reduced to pre-sapient states. She paused, letting that sink in. We didn't just kill them. We've eliminated every trace of their biotechnology, cleansed every world they infected. The galaxy is free of their taint. A representative from a gaseous species floated forward. The methods used, the completeness of the extinction, many find it disturbing. Admiral Chen smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Good. Let me be clear about humanity's position on this matter. We're new to the galactic community. We're still learning your customs, your laws, your taboos, but we have one absolute rule that we will enforce with extreme prejudice: don't hurt children. She gestured, and a hologram appeared showing the coordinates of every world humanity had cleansed of Kryvak's influence. This isn't a warning, it's a promise. Threaten our children or any children, and what happened to the Kryvaks will look like a dress rehearsal. The chamber was silent. Now, her smile became slightly less predatory. We'd be happy to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation. Earth makes excellent coffee, and we're very interested in learning more about our galactic neighbors. Just remember the rule. As they left the chamber, Dr. Chen turned to his sister. Think they got the message? Oh yes, but just to be sure, she activated her neural interface, sending a command to the quantum beacons humanity had left in former Kryvak space. Each one began broadcasting on all frequencies. This region is under quarantine by order of the Human Security Force. Reason for quarantine: extinction-level event caused by fucking around and finding out. Have a nice day. Back on Earth, in a Chicago hospital room, children who had faced the darkness of space were finally opening their eyes to see a galaxy made slightly safer by human vengeance. And somewhere in the void, the quantum beacons continued their endless broadcast, a lullaby of warning to any who might consider hunting children again. Humanity is watching, and we're really good at pest control.